Dan, when I was at NBC about creating IT cosmetics. And she did have the high, I can't even do it, my voice is too low, but she had the high squeaky voice a little, but she's really leaning in now in her little podcast with Megyn, and she's gone next octave up, and the two of them have the weirdest dynamic.
Megyn Kelly tears apart the carefully staged image of Meghan Markle, exposing what she sees as a mix of authoritarian posturing, emotional theatrics, and relentless attention-seeking. Once celebrated as the fresh face who might modernize the monarchy, Meghan is now portrayed as a tangled web of contradictions and complaints. Kelly argues that the Duchess dismantled her own fairy tale, turning privilege into grievance, opportunity into mockery, and fame into frustration. In Kelly's words, Meghan has become the unwitting architect of her own downfall, trading luxury for a narrative of self-inflicted misery.
Markle posted a bizarre video on her social media yesterday, which sent several people into absolute meltdown. It is the cringiest, most uncomfortable piece of tape I've seen in a long time. I'm sorry, but I'm going to make you watch it. Saw it 24.
1 month, 2 months, 3 months, hit the baby mama when I step into the house.
She's supposedly 9 months pregnant in the hospital room, dancing with a big...
When Megyn Kelly looks at Meghan Markle, she sees what she calls recycled victimhood dressed up in designer fabric. And it's not the coat that's costly, it's the entire brand Meghan has built around it. Kelly dismantles that image quickly, arguing that Meghan has perfected the art of turning ordinary discomforts into tales of suffering. To Kelly, the Duchess now resembles someone auditioning for the role of saint of perpetual struggles, making complaint her full-time profession. The irony, Kelly notes, is that much of the audience has stopped applauding and started questioning the performance.
So in this podcast, Megyn does her perfectly curated life thing, but she's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout, you know, and like she's completely camera ready, except she didn't put eye makeup on. And she also is pretending like she's crying. And we did a zero in, like we zoomed in just to see. There isn't a tear in sight, Dan. Look at
Kelly delivers perhaps the clearest breakdown of Meghan Markle's self-created spectacle. The Duchess packaged herself as a humanitarian, a trailblazer, and a courageous voice, supposedly stifled by an outdated monarchy. But Kelly points out that this was only surface-level branding. Meghan was never silenced. If anything, she was amplified. Elevated, celebrated, and placed under the brightest lights, she later complained that the cameras were cruel. Kelly highlights the contradiction. Meghan may be the first person in history to claim both suffocation and overexposure at the same time. In Kelly's view, this isn't courage on display, it's insecurity in its rawest form. Then comes the fairy tale, one Meghan insists the world must never forget. As if telling it for the first time, she retells it again and again, polishing and packaging it like a Netflix drama. From the comfort of her lavish home, the Duchess paints herself as a princess trapped in unbearable injustice. Kelly quips that only Meghan could turn a crown into a chain and a palace into a prison. But, she argues, the real tragedy isn't Meghan's proclaimed suffering, it's that the audience is forced to sit through its endless retelling.
She is the most insecure person I have seen in the public eye in a long time. That is why everything had to be perfectly curated. Who the hell picks fucking berries in a white cashmere blouse and white pants? Literally no one on earth does that. And like this garden, which is like...
One of the strangest spectacles in modern celebrity culture, Kelly argues, is Harry, the once admired prince who has been reduced to Meghan's podcast sidekick. Her critique doesn't stop with Meghan. She highlights how Harry was swept into her narrative, transformed from a respected royal and decorated soldier into a background player in her ongoing campaign for sympathy. Kelly likens his role to that of a man who managed to escape the strict grip of palace guards, only to end up captured by his own wife's PR machine.
To take a close-up look at this. Where's the tear? There's nothing there. Look, it's an actor's trick. She just keeps wiping and wiping and wiping, so we think she has a heart.
Oh my God, Meghan. She has this really famous thing where she says one tap left eye and she can make herself cry on demand. And it's a really good thing to have as an actress. but you're completely right. There were no tears there.
Kelly offers one of her sharpest takes when dissecting Meghan's obsession with authenticity. Meghan's version of authenticity, she argues, is as carefully preserved as a museum piece. Every interview, every outfit, every angle of lighting is staged to make her appear effortlessly relatable. Kelly points out the irony. Meghan speaks of the struggles of working mothers while delivering the message from behind a podium dressed in Dior. The absurdity, Kelly says, is clearest when Meghan tries to portray her lifestyle as humble, all while living in a Montecito estate so vast it practically deserves its own zip code. She orchestrates photo ops that conveniently appear at the right moment, then turns around and condemns the very media attention she feeds. But what Kelly finds most grating is Meghan's endless self-reinvention. Her identity shifts depending on the narrative. The victim, the entrepreneur, the podcaster, the Hollywood actress, the philanthropist, the royal princess. In the end, Kelly argues, Meghan doesn't define herself, the audience does.
Is there too. She's kind of twerking. She's gonna twerk. Here comes Harry. She spreads her legs. She hikes her dress. She circles her genitals around and around. Okay. This is deeply problematic on a number.
Kelly argues that Meghan's supposed brilliance is vouched for only by those on her payroll. Yes, Meghan appears to be in control, but always on her own terms.
She only has on people who she gave money to so they can say how amazing she is.
Yeah, it's like she's her boss. So like Meghan is Hannah Mendoza's boss, effectively. So clearly she's keeping to the script. But there's this really awful moment where Meghan turns into the mean girl that we know she all is, and she mocks Hannah Mendoza.
Following a predictable script, Meghan stages moments that place her in the spotlight even at the expense of others. Kelly points to one uncomfortable example where Meghan mocks Hannah Mendoza, painting her in an unkind light. And through it all, one thing remains constant: Meghan must be celebrated. Kelly exposes this relentless appetite for validation, showing how Meghan has perfected the art of congratulating herself while insisting she doesn't care what anyone thinks. Kelly also takes aim at Meghan's carefully packaged feminist image. For years, Meghan has spoken of tearing down barriers, but Kelly highlights the irony. Her career has revolved around breaking into institutions only to dismantle them for personal gain. The Duchess married into royalty, rode its global recognition to stardom, then dismissed it for not applauding loudly enough. She demands to be seen as both the underdog and the victor, both insider and outsider, both participant and critic. In Kelly's view, this isn't feminism, it's opportunism dressed up as empowerment. Meghan's activism, she argues, has always been more about capturing the perfect photo than achieving meaningful results. And when the veneer is stripped away, Meghan's feminism looks less like progress and more like a glossy vanity project.
Here's the problem. We don't like you, Meghan Markle. We don't like you. And no amount of posting videos that you think are going to humanize you will make us like you. You've already shown us your true colors. We know who you are. You helped kill the Queen. You didn't give two shits about calling the royal family racist while Prince Philip was on his deathbed and casting aspersions on him. You have completely undermined all the amazing gifts that this family has given you as nothing, and suggested that they didn't care you were suicidal and they were the ones who drove you there.
No roast of Meghan would be complete without mentioning her infamous interview moments, the long dramatic pauses, the perfectly timed tears glistening under studio lights. Kelly ridicules these performances, noting how Meghan has weaponized vulnerability. Small personal slights are recast as systemic injustice. A cold glance becomes oppression, and minor discomfort is elevated into tragedy. Kelly strips away the facade, arguing that Meghan's brand isn't built on overcoming adversity, it's built on monetizing it. Then comes the American dream narrative Meghan loves to tell. She insists she walked away from the monarchy to live freely in the United States. But Kelly highlights the irony. Meghan's version of freedom is signing multi-million-dollar contracts with corporations eager to cash in on royal gossip. Privacy in this framework means selling your story to any outlet willing to pay. Kelly skewers the contradiction. calling Meghan's independence nothing more than a corporate exit plan masquerading as empowerment.
Over the top. Like, we're all supposed to go, Maureen, to make our breakfast in the morning, out to our gardens and pick our berries, our raspberries, our strawberries, our blueberries, or snozberries, and cut our mint, and then cut our flowers that are edible. But don't worry, she's a woman of the people. You can grow those just on your windowsill at home in New York, your edible flowers.
And don't forget your local beekeeper.
Yeah.
Your local beekeeper.
Oh yeah, because she has a bee hive, which she goes, that's how they open the whole series with her bees, and like, don't worry, if you don't have this, just go to your local beekeeper. Clearly we're...
Meghan's so-called relatability is another target of Kelly's critique. Time and again, Meghan tries to cast herself as just like everyone else, as though the audience should nod along while sipping coffee in their modest apartments. But Kelly underscores the absurdity. This is the Duchess of Montecito, whose greatest concern once was whether her custom-fitted gown would complement the palace decor. In Kelly's scathing irony, Meghan becomes the world's most relatable by being utterly unrelatable. What makes Kelly's roast sting even more is her argument that Meghan lost control of the very thing she relied on most, the narrative. Meghan has built her livelihood on portraying herself as misunderstood, mistreated, and undervalued, but Kelly dismantles that story, stripping away the shield. Meghan had the chance to modernize the monarchy and bring fresh energy to a fading institution. Instead, she chose a different path, monetizing victimhood, torching bridges, and retreating to California while pretending not to care.
That would really show, you know, the crack in the facade. I have trouble believing that, because she right now wants to maintain the facade and wants us all to believe that it's perfect in Montecito, you know, welcome to Montecito time, where we have champagne with fruit dollops inside of it at all hours of the day. But anyway, why would she risk that news coming out by actively shopping? You know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, she's a deeply manipulative woman.
Kelly calls Meghan Markle's story one of the greatest missed opportunities in modern celebrity culture. Not a downfall caused by oppression, but by self-absorption. Her roast drives home the point that Meghan's saga isn't tragic, it's tedious. The endless reinventions, the staged drama, the recycled grievances, all of it adds up not to heartbreak, but to boredom. Meghan, Kelly quips, isn't a fallen star so much as a broken record. And the audience, they stopped listening long ago. Kelly also takes aim at Meghan's obsession with winning Hollywood's approval. The irony is bitter. Once a moderately successful actress struggling for big roles, Meghan seemed to believe that marrying into an actual monarchy would rebrand her as Hollywood royalty, but Kelly argues the strategy backfired. Meghan's acting hasn't improved, the performances feel forced, and now the stage has simply grown global. To Kelly, Meghan's career looks less like a triumph and more like a never-ending audition tape. And then, of course, there's the Netflix documentary, a project that Kelly sees as the perfect symbol of Meghan's contradictions.
He gave an interview to People magazine. And in the People magazine article, she says she loves like building this safe haven and show with her daughter, and as part of her As Ever brand. And she says, being able to have my own little girl, as I've spent so much of my life championing the rights of girls and women, and to be able to see this as a multi-generational story. Archie is of course included in that. My husband is of course included in that. But I love the heritage feeling of it, and knowing this is something that I can create in front of my daughter and teach her what it's like to be a working mom. This is not...
Kelly dismisses the so-called inside look offered by Harry and Meghan's Netflix special as nothing more than a glossy highlight reel of grievances no one ever asked to watch. It wasn't a story, it was score-settling disguised as drama. She ridicules the absurdity of two multimillionaires lamenting their hardships while lounging on a sprawling estate. To Kelly, the project wasn't a documentary at all, but reality TV so lacking in self-awareness that it accidentally became a parody of itself. Her critique doesn't stop there. Meghan's podcast, once hyped as a groundbreaking platform for thoughtful conversations, fell flat. Kelly seizes on this failure, pointing out how every episode seemed less about elevating other voices and more about elevating Meghan herself, her struggles, her brilliance, her endless sense of persecution. Rather than cultural commentary, Kelly argues, The show was therapy dressed up as content creation. Even Spotify, she notes, eventually realized it wasn't worth the investment. Kelly also skewers Meghan's attempts to rebrand as a global leader, standing behind podiums in Dior gowns, posing alongside politicians, and delivering empowerment speeches may create powerful images, but Kelly exposes how hollow it all is.
Absolutely no love lost between her and most people who may be somewhat warm towards the royal family, even if we're not big on royalty. She's reportedly bullied virtually everybody who's ever worked for her. She can't keep a staff in London. She can't keep a staff in Montecito. She's a bully. She's obsessed with her own ego, face on television, etc., and playing the victim. So no amount of humanizing videos, even if she managed to find one, are going to work.
Meghan hasn't brokered deals, authored policy, or led campaigns. She's posed, she's performed, and she's made sure the cameras were rolling. The issue, Kelly says, isn't that Meghan despises the media, it's that she despises not being the one directing it. Finally, Kelly takes aim at Meghan's Silicon Valley entrepreneur reinvention, a pivot that, in her eyes, only deepens the parody. Your script frames Meghan Markle's public persona as a case study in the pitfalls of modern celebrity branding, where visibility is often mistaken for influence. The comparison to Gwyneth Paltrow is deliberate and cutting. While Paltrow transformed her platform into a sustainable lifestyle empire, Meghan's attempts appear derivative and fleeting, relying heavily on buzzwords and performative gestures rather than substantive ventures. Kelly's critique lands hardest on Meghan's deflection of responsibility, painting her as a figure who thrives on perpetual grievance. This cycle, where every controversy is reframed as an attack by institutions, prejudice, or tradition, creates a protective narrative but also prevents growth. Instead of recalibrating after failures, Meghan leans further into victimhood, which may temporarily sustain sympathy but ultimately erodes credibility. The irony lies in her access to unprecedented opportunities. As a duchess with global recognition, she could have transcended celebrity to become a cultural or philanthropic force. Instead, by foregrounding self-promotion and blame shifting, she diminishes her own stature. Kelly's analysis suggests that history will not remember her as a trailblazer, but as a squandered opportunity. A figure who had the platform to redefine relevance, yet settled for headlines that dissipate as quickly as they arrive. The tension between fame and substance becomes the defining issue. In a media landscape oversaturated with personalities, endurance comes not from perpetual motion or curated victimhood, but from tangible contributions that outlast hype. Meghan's failure to pivot from spectacle to substance risks cementing her legacy as someone who mistook attention for achievement. The verdict is less about her celebrity status than about her inability to transform notoriety into meaningful impact, leaving her caught in the paradox of being endlessly visible yet curiously insubstantial.